All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for attending the Pando Days 24-25 Spring Term Project Premieres. My name is Matthew Manos. I'm the head of a design firm here in Los Angeles called Very Nice, faculty at USC, and a longtime Pando maniac. I am your host today. Pando Days is the program that turns academic work into real-world solutions for impact in your community and world. All Pando Days premiere events follow a standard format. We've got about 15 to 20 minutes to present summaries of the projects, followed by about a half an hour of Q&A from a panel of experts. These events are recorded, and then over the summer, the recordings, along with all the project materials, will be posted on each team's dedicated webpage, which you can find at pandopopulous.com. The projects are then judged by a distinguished panel of specialists with honors and prizes passed out, networking opportunities galore happening at the Pando Sustainability Awards. So please stay tuned for more details on that. Today, we'll be hearing from UCLA for the final premiere event of the 24-25 season. The project is led by Rebecca Mendez and is titled Biophilia Treehouse, Phase 3. This is the third Pando Days season in which Biophilia Treehouse makes an appearance. It is a living structure equipped with native plants to constitute a complete ecosystem for some of LA's most threatened birds and provide a place for interspecies communication. This season, Rebecca and team focused on further developing the prototype currently installed at the Pando campus in Encino, owned by the Sisters of Social Service. I can't wait to hear more. This is a particularly special one for me because Rebecca was my teacher in college as well. So very excited to learn and see more what you guys have been up to. Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Eugene, everybody at Pando, Hidrun. So beautiful to see you all. And I am I am a professor at UCLA in the Design Media Arts Department. I am also founder and director of the Counterforce Lab. And I'll introduce to you three members of the lab that are here. Adam Ewens. Maybe you want to introduce yourself, but producer,
My partner in crime.
partner in crime, Ellie.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm a visiting assistant professor at Bard and former PhD student at UCLA, and the associate director of the lab.
And Lila.
Hi, I'm Lila. I'm a graduate assistant to Professor Mendez, and I'm an MFA candidate in production in the School of Theater, Film, and Television.
Beautiful. So I think that, yeah, so let's begin. I'll begin by,
Sharing screen.
yes, I'm going to be sharing here. Let's begin the presentation. Okay, so first, the UCLA Counterforce Lab recognizes and acknowledges the first people of the ancestral and unceded territory of Sweet Kanga, which is now occupied by the Sisters of Social Service, also known as Encino, where our Biophilia Treehouse is situated. We honor their elders, past and present, and the descendants who are citizens of the Fernandeño Tataviam Band of Mission Indians. We recognize that the tribe is still here, and we are committed to lifting their stories, culture, and community. Who are we? We are UCLA Counterforce Lab, which is a research studio that harnesses the power of art and design to engage with the reality of the global ecological crisis and its ties to environmental injustice. Counterforce Lab is a collection of artists, designers, scientists, and thinkers working transdisciplinary collaborations with community partners to engage in art making grounded in storytelling and place-based artistic fieldwork practices. But we definitely want to start with our community partners. In Encino, a 20-minute drive from the UCLA campus, a prototype of Biophilia Treehouse was built in 2023 on the grounds of the Sisters of Social Service, a Roman Catholic religious institution of women dedicated to social justice and human dignity. We are so grateful for our partnership to the sisters that was made possible by Pando Populous. Thank you so much, Pando, our community partner as well, that we are so happy with. And this year, the Lanai Road Elementary School, just across the Sisters of Social Service, joined as community partners to fulfill the vision of the Biophilia Treehouse as art and science outdoor laboratory. Our project for Pando Days 2025 is Biophilia Treehouse Art, Science, and Education coalesced in an outdoor laboratory. But before we give you an overview of the Biophilia Treehouse, we want to share with you a summary of our current goals. The Biophilia Treehouse is a living sculpture with native plants that constitute a complete ecosystem for some of LA's most threatened birds. Our central effort this year has been to further develop the prototype installed at the Sisters of Social Service in Encino in order to offer a vibrant space to observe urban biodiversity, practice ecological stewardship, and learn through direct engagement with native flora and avifauna. The Biophilia Treehouse grew out of a vision to create avian wildlife corridors to reconnect fractured habitats in dense urban parts of LA County, while simultaneously addressing disparities in green space access, a dual ecological and social mission. As a next step, we are seeking to grow the Biophilia Treehouse into an outdoor laboratory and classroom and implement the curriculum that we have been teaching to third graders for the last 3 years at OLA in downtown Los Angeles. And the course, Our Neighbors, the Birds, was designed and taught by Counterforce Lab Associate Director Ellie Diamant, and and the Yale Lab. And Ellie will be sharing a lot more about the course during the presentation. But let's begin by giving you an overview. For those of you who do not know about our project, we're going to go into details about every aspect of the design that we have done for the last 5 years. In 2019, LA County adopted a new sustainability plan to meet the climate, ecological, and environmental justice challenges of the 21st century. UCLA's Counterforce Lab was invited to respond to the sustainability plan goal number 5, thriving ecosystems, habitats, and biodiversity, as part of the 2019 Pando Days initiative by Pando Populous. And in response, we created the Biophilia Treehouse. The Biophilia Treehouse is a public arts initiative to grow a series of living sculptures housing native trees and plants that together constitute a complete ecosystem for LA's most threatened birds. When built in sequence, a series of Biophilia treehouses form an avian wildlife corridor that reconnects fractured habitats, especially in dense urban areas where environmental inequities abound. These are the 4 core pillars of the Biophilia Treehouse. That's not there somehow, but I'll say them. They are stepping stones for sensitive birds in urban landscapes, honoring bird people and human people and place, I guess avian people and all other more than human people, mitigation of environmental inequities, and on-site education and ecological stewardship. The Biophilia Treehouse emerged from my profound love for birds. My research and practice is rooted in fostering healthy relationships with other beings, other living beings, in a way establishing like interspecies friendships with wild animals in order for me to understand my own humanity. So
for Biophilia Treehouse, the Counterforce team asked a simple question: what do birds want? How can we build with birds as our client, decenter the human perspective, and understand the ramifications of that? To begin, we had to know the state of birds in Los Angeles and why they're so important. After all, not all birds are the same, and many do seem to be doing well in urban Los Angeles. LA County is a global biodiversity hotspot. It is home to the largest set of threatened and endangered plants and animals in the continental United States. Among this species richness, LA County is also the birdiest county in the United States. Over 500 bird species are recorded in the county, including 305 species in the built environment. Urbanization in Los Angeles, though, is a major threat to the region's biodiversity as it breaks apart and shrinks suitable habitat, separating populations from each other and creating strong changes in habitat conditions most native organisms cannot adjust to.
So sorry, we're having helicopters flying over us. That's not supposed to happen. It's supposed to be just birds.
Why is this important? Urbanization has fractured habitat connectivity across LA County by separating and distancing bird habitats, making it harder for individuals to avoid interbreeding or even to have the range they need to survive and thrive. Together, habitat loss and fragmentation lead to population decline and collapse. When built in locational sequence, a series of biophilia tree houses form stepping stones, a type of wildlife corridor to reconnect these fractured habitats, particularly for our avian friends who can fly between them. Here, you can see just how broken our green spaces are in Los Angeles. LA County has identified 6 areas of habitat fragmentation where wildlife corridors are urgently needed. We have selected corridor number 6 as our priority. That's the one that goes through the LA River.
Okay, hold on.
But first, why birds? Bird diversity and the prevalence of certain bird species are indicators of good environmental health and habitat quality. These specific birds are often dependent on specific environmental conditions, particularly associations with certain native plants, which foster an ecology they have evolved with and are dependent on. By creating an environment where these birds' needs are met, we can ensure we're fostering a complete and healthy ecosystem in response to the destructive effects of 20th century urbanization. We can also make space connections between humans and urban nature. We're focusing on local sensitive species and indicator species found in a large restored park in the same general area as this site. We determine plant species and design based on their ecological needs.
Oh, yes, me. Okay. The native plant and landscape is headed by ecologist and landscape architect Madeline Lawn, seen here in the center. Together with our ornithology expert, Ellie, we chose plants that can meet all the needs of the birds, from nesting to foraging to perching. These would include plants that foster a healthy insect community. This large array of potential plants were compared to those found locally at the Sisters of Social Service so that we could knowingly choose native plants in the area uncomfortable. I'm trying to navigate because I need to click that one, so sorry about that. And choose plants native to the area and comfortable in the climate and complement the plants already on the site. Our native trees are here. Native shrubs. We've planted many of these already. We've planted about maybe 50 or 60 plants already. Native ground covers, and our native vines, and we added the wild rose to those. Design methodology, architecture informed by bird behavior. We see the birds as clients and collaborators. We move away from a service model, which is hierarchical, and embrace the reciprocal model, which is non-hierarchical and promotes a knowledge and benefits exchange. The design emerges from the earth and opens up to the sky as an invitation to birds soaring above in search of food and nesting cavities. This is what it's looking like. The design is like a kit of parts. It has 5 components, and we're going to go into detail in each one of them. We begin with internal structural support, which is made out of steel. Then we have a facade system made out of bamboo poles that are 18 feet in length. We have repurposed rebar, and then we have tree limbs that are usually found on site, and we keep inserting those. We have modular bird cavities, elevated garden platform for ground forager habitats, and then we have earth screws, and we'll go a little bit more into detail on that. The biophilia treehouse attracts ground foragers and nesters by utilizing native grasses placed at a height that allows for people to observe without disturbing the birds. And this is how it's looking like now, just completely luscious, again, a few years later. Nest cavities are individually designed considering research done on cavity nesters' preferences and ecology. The dimensions, hole sizes, and numbers suit the needs of the oak titmouse and western bluebird. We are also providing modular cubbies and ledges to provide alternate nesting sites for birds that like nesting in cliff sides or crevices, like the mourning dove. Collectively, these will be accessible and movable so that we can learn from the birds' preferences, shift them around, collect data on the birds themselves, and sanitize and manage them over time. And here again, this is what they're looking like. And we actually know that the oak titmouse likes the house. 2 years in a row, a pair of oak titmouses have chosen the nest and to have their chicks in the biophilia treehouse. We are ecstatic. Because, they have so much, the choice that they have. They can choose any tree, but they're choosing the biophilia treehouse. So that's quite amazing. So fabrication and installation, I'm going to just fly through these. If you have any questions regarding this, let me know. But this is going to go through how we build the nest boxes. We're pyrographing, basically burning each dot of our signage that we'll talk about, or insignia in the bamboo poles. This is the steel structure being placed. We talked about the idea of taking care of that the soil remain healthy, that we did not pollute it with concrete. So we used instead a company called Dig It, and we used 4-feet screws and welded the structure to them. And here's UCLA architecture graduate, Camille Walkinshaw, who led the design and fabrication of the biophilia treehouse. And again, more building. This is when we started planting. We'll talk a little bit more about the planting, but here is a little bit of the landscape design. Just briefly, I'm going to fly through this because we did so much research about finding how to design it, where to place the plants, and again, creating a palette that was appropriate for what the birds needed. Here we are with the class of professors Larin Gord-Litsky and Alison Lipman. It's the restoration ecology class that they came and just planted all of these wonderful plants. They are part of the community of Counterforce Lab. And then here it is years later, as the plants beginning to look at this. This is just when we had planted. Look at that. And now it's so luscious and beautiful. We sought out an ethnographic arts team to support the development of a narrative that reflects the stories of the land and its people. This is inspired by the work of Anishinaabe scientist and professor Robin Wall Kimmerer and her observation of the power in telling stories in order to meaningfully process with healing, with restoration, and with what is referred to as restoration, a concept put forth by ethnobotanist scholar Gary Nabhan and Kimmerer. We did that the same way that we took a lot of effort into understanding the histories of the land. We also, and its people, right? We also conducted ethnographic workshops with the sisters to be able for them to convey what was meaningful for them of the land and their symbolism to their culture. So these, I'm going to just fly through them a little bit because there's a lot of detail and we don't have much time, but please ask me questions regarding this. But in the end, what was at the core of the biophilia treehouse is to enter into long-term relations of reciprocity with the native peoples of the land and understanding this and support their needs, as well as the community currently in the Sisters of Social Service. And all of that, it was to be able to create symbolism, insignia with the communities. We would be talking to them about what was important to them and selecting different symbols appropriate for them. We looked at history, of course, to be able to select certain symbols. And here we began transforming them in something we could pyrograph onto the bamboo. You see the research, the visual reference, and then the insignia of the design. For the Tataviam, this is their seal. So we've already designed symbols for the sun, the mountain, the bear, and we did it here more like a mama bear, and the eagle. And again, this is one of the symbols for the sisters that represents the Holy Spirit. So Tataviam, here is the sun, and then for the sisters, Holy Spirit. And we also do the same to the avian people. So we have here symbols for each one of our birds. We also look at different research from looking at abundance of each bird species. And then we created a system that, for example, here, you could see that in January, you would not be able to see the song sparrow, but look for it in May, because that's where it's most abundant. So in that way, it's also a way of learning. And then our students pyrograph the symbols onto the bamboos, which is again like a soldering iron. And here's a couple of examples of that. The key thing that we are focusing on now is the art and science education and making it be an outdoor laboratory. You want to, I think that was maybe you, Ellie?
Yes, yes. So studies show that interacting with wildlife, specifically bird watching, helps mental health, environmental stewardship, and fosters connection to the natural world. Click next. Thank you. Why do we want to focus on educational spaces? We believe that arts and science instruction centered on ecology is vital for young children because it is only through hands-on experience with birds, plants, and other elements of the natural world that children will come to love, value, and protect the living world now and in the future. So concurrent to developing the structure of the biophilia treehouse, we also developed curriculum that we taught with Heart of Los Angeles, an education equity organization that's centered around MacArthur Park. This was done with our collaborators in my former lab, the Yeh Lab, led by Dr. Pamela Yeh. So we taught 2 renditions of a course called Our Neighbors, the Birds, with 3rd graders and then 1st graders. And now a 3rd one is being taught by current graduate students in the lab, and it is meant to be taught in perpetuity in collaboration and co-creation with the faculty there. And the goal of this class was really to think about nature as something all around us. So we went out and we birded with students. You can see here in MacArthur Park, we birded just really around the campus of OLA and treated nature as something that is here, not something that we have to go to over there, so to speak, in the mountains far away, to increase inclusivity in science. Outdoor education is vitally important in science education, and it really connects students to the natural world. It fosters that kind of stewardship, it fosters that connection, but often it is something that comes with privilege of being able to travel to these faraway places, and that might reinforce this idea that nature is not something to take care of in your local environment. So we really tried to decenter that from the perspective of this course, and we reconnected students with all the birds that are all around them, and also the rats. They got very into the local rats as well. But the goal is that we can use this kind of curriculum in places with the biophilia treehouse with students there as well. There was also an arts component where students, after learning about all these different aspects of birds, made their own birds, gave them names, made them with clay, made their whole natural history. So there are also these components that can be connected to art and connect art to science and to our local neighbors, the birds.
Thank you, Ellie. Lanai Road Elementary is a public school located walking distance from the Biophilia Treehouse. As a result of this proximity, we plan to teach our neighbors, the birds, to third graders at Lanai. This class will be able to make regular visits to the Biophilia Treehouse, documenting similarities and differences between the treehouse and other natural vegetation nearby and around their home, as well as documenting changes over time. By foregrounding youth-centered experiential learning and drawing from both scientific and creative disciplines, we aim not only to create access to green space, but to co-create a pedagogic model that empowers communities to feel at home in nature, to see themselves as environmental stewards, and to imagine sustainable futures grounded in justice, care, and kinship. And our goal is to teach this class at Lanai for the third graders this coming spring in 2026, and to have the landscape and accessibility features such as signage, handrails, and benches in place to receive classroom-sized audiences. We are currently awaiting and hopefully positive results on 3 grants that we wrote towards this endeavor. Last month, we installed landscape edging to have a safe pathway all around the Biophilia Treehouse. And these are the kind of ideas that we have for sitting, especially because we will be repurposing any fallen trees found at the sisters' grounds. And then we have designed handrails, and now we just need to fabricate them and install them. So what's the future of the Biophilia Treehouse? And the key thing is to establish a network of wildlife corridors and community partners. I think that we said that already. So forming wildlife corridors also intersects with environmental injustice. The areas in LA that are most in need of connectivity are also areas of underserved communities who have experienced a history of environmental injustice and inequities in access to park space and the natural world. We are choosing a needed habitat corridor that intersects with these issues, and that's the LA River corridor, and especially its south portion. Here, neighborhoods have high poverty levels and are in need of green space. Each will be localized to place and provide stepping stones across the city. Collectively, they will foster habitat connectivity while responding to historic environmental injustice across Los Angeles. Each will be rooted to place with community and community storytelling while providing a space for ecological education directly with urban nature. We aim to install biophilia tree houses at elementary schools and educational organizations, public libraries, parks, and youth probation centers along the southern LA River in partnership with communities who experience inequities in access to park space and the natural world. And this map shows how we have mapped along the LA River elementary schools that exist right now, libraries and detention centers. And so, of course, the idea is that imagine if each one of them would have a biophilia treehouse. It would really create those stepping stones and then address, again, those environmental inequities. Now, let's speak a little bit. In closing, we want to talk about integral ecology. The Sisters of Social Service in Encino, they're dedicated to social justice and human dignity. In 2015, Pope Francis gave the speech on care of our common home and introduced the idea of integral ecology, which promotes a vision of a world where environmental protection is inseparable from social justice, economic equality, and cultural values, leading to a more sustainable and harmonious future for all. As a result, the sisters defined a goal to make their land an eco-friendly compound where all life forms are celebrated and made sacred. This radical commitment to integral ecology is shared both by Pando Populace and the Counterforce Lab, and is embodied as a symbol by the form and function of Biophilia Treehouse, really the mission and vision of it. You want to say that, Amy?
Ever since we introduced the concept at the inaugural Pando Days event in 2020, Pando has recognized its potential to be an emblem for the very goals they have set out to accomplish. Pando is named after the largest and perhaps oldest living organism in the world, an aspen tree grove in Utah consisting of 47,000 stems, all connected through one root ball. Radical commitment to integral ecology is shared by Pando Populace, the Sisters of Social Services, and the Counterforce Lab, and is embodied in the Biophilia Treehouse.
Pando is a multi-stem tree, a single living organism, and so Biophilia Treehouse, we see it as a symbol of Pando as well. And yeah, so these are the core pillars that we talked about, and this is our team, and we welcome your response and your comments. Thank you.
Amazing work, Rebecca and team. Love being able to see the process of how this has built out and shaped over time, and can't wait to see where it goes next. It's a Los Angeles takeover in the making, the kind that we need as well. So let's hear from our panel. We'll have about 20 minutes for some informal back and forth discussion. How do we assess the project? Where could this go next to make more impact? Any questions about the process, since there's so much there as well. Today we have Rebecca Schmidt and Heidrun Mumperdrum. Rebecca is member of the Pando Board of Directors and its secretary and treasurer. Her background is as an executive and entrepreneur with deep experience in businesses, from early stage startups to the Fortune 50. She has a track record of heading up successful launches, audience growth, and brand building. And in 2015, she was named one of Folio magazine's top women in media. And Heidrun is with the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, where she has been for over 25 years as a professor and as the director of the environmental initiatives, preparing art and design students for professional careers that steward the earth. This background made her a wonderful chair of the Chief Sustainability Officer Task Force for LA County as well. So thank you for joining us both. Rebecca, or Becca, should we say, shall we have you start first, and then Heidrun will jump over to you.
Sure. It's really so great to see a year after year evolution of this project. It's really exciting, and especially for me, because for some reason I've become obsessed with birds in the last couple of months, and I can't explain why it took me this long to get obsessed with birds. And in my own small habitat that I have here on my property in Altadena, got my first oak titmouse this week, so I'm super excited about that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, a few months ago I wouldn't have known what that was, but anyway, so it was really, really fun to see our project, and I really wish we had more time to dig into the details. And I love the educational aspect of it, that get the kids while they're young, get them thinking about this. Is there any idea about reaching out to adult ed? And because a lot of us have small properties here in Southern California and could be doing more, not the full treehouse, but maybe some aspects of it if people only knew what to do.
Yes, and I think that one of the things that we are already beginning to think about with Pam Ye of the Ye Lab is how to take this course to high school students as well. And they would focus much more on fire restoration and climate change, and how is it that the birds are adapting to it. That is something that we are wanting to make sure that we extend this to the Lanai School of the primary students, but inevitably everybody needs to learn, right? Because we all need the tools to be able to respond and feel confident in responding and doing something appropriate in that. So any thoughts on that, Ellie?
No, I agree. I think it would make sense if we could build these also in places that other people have access. We've added in educational components into the design itself, which I think is also worth mentioning, like when to notice different bird species. And I think that there's room for growth that might be also informal education rather than a course per se.
Claro. And also on that is something that we did not mention, but we acquired technology already with with the grants that we got this last year to be able to have access, remote access, right? Because it's not just about accessibility that you have on site, but also remote. So the idea is to be able to have, we got this, we have cameras that we will install in place, and we have sound, specifically a sound unit that records and tells you what species there are on the environment. Making that accessible, on our site, that you can always go to that live cam, would be beautiful. So that's another way of educating and being able to have that access. So we're definitely looking of ways to make it much more accessible so education can be really, really wide.
And
Well, that was going to be my next question was, have you thought about a webcam? Because I would
Have you been
totally,
like obsessed by the eagles of Big Bear Lake?
Yeah.
oh,
We
totally
have been
obsessed.
obsessed. Yes,
Totally.
we want that.
It is wonderful to see them successfully living to adulthood. I guess it's almost adulthood. That yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
very exciting. But anytime that you need a moment of rest, you can just sort of check into the webcam and watch the birds. The other thing I'm fascinated with pretty much all of these projects is it's obviously a team of a lot of people with a lot of creativity and a lot of ideas and maybe divergent ideas. What's the process that you use to develop a consensus on, okay, we're going to tackle this year, but we can't tackle this? And how do you go through that process with your team?
This is a beautiful moment for Lila, because Lila has been amazing about organizing our students throughout the year. And we have a laboratory at UCLA. We have our wonderful space that we meet weekly, and we also meet on site when we need to do planting and any of that. So you want to share a little bit, Lila, about what you did in order for you to kind of bring everybody together?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this year was such a wonderful learning experience to sort of navigate, okay, like, what is the process of continuing a project as massive as this? And so I think it was really like, of course, maintaining the rapport with the students, right? And then I mean, really, Rebecca's guidance and Madeline's guidance and Ellie's guidance were so key and crucial and fundamental to understanding what the actual needs of the site were, right? And then sort of figuring out how we went from there, because there are so many ever evolving needs of the site. And so I think something for me that was really helpful was actually being sure to ground um, remembering what the project is grounded in, right? Which is, sort of this social initiative, sort of remembering what the pillars of the actual project are, and this larger environmental initiative, and sort of like how do we fulfill this goal of establishing and sort of rebuilding the wildlife corridor that Ellie's talking about, and also sort of just uh, designating different tasks based on our different skill sets. So for me, I'm more on the creative side. It was very new for me to sort of think about birds and the environment and how do you actually create like a healthy living environment for them. And so that was really just working collaboratively.
Claro, but you were so pragmatic. I think one of the strengths of Laila also was because we needed to do so much maintenance, right? And the tasks that we had to accomplish. And so we are going to meet on Saturday, the entire botany team, and we're going to be weeding, and we're going to be establishing the edging so that making sure the little ones don't roll down the mountain. So I think that they were like very pragmatic things, because I know right now they would have months ago. But I think that a lot of it is, again, like being clear about the mission and just communicating to everybody and knowing the strengths of everybody in the team. And so we divided the team in small, like there was a couple of students that were, creating the signage of all the plants. So the hammering in metal, every name of the plant and putting them so that when you go there, you learn about all the plants that are in the site. So yeah, no, honestly, it's a daily thing to be able to manage this. And of course, Adam as well as producer, he definitely manages a lot of the pragmatics of the site and of the project.
Right. I'm always appreciative of how time constrained your presentations have to be in these. And I know there's so much more to what you all did than you had time to squeeze in. If you had 1 or 2 more minutes to add something, what would you add?
Well, I think we didn't get to talk a lot about the histories and the way in which we actually needed to be able to make sure that we honored land and people, right? So the entire history of the land, starting, what is it, maybe 10,000 years ago, and as we are moving into the Tataviam histories, one of the key things in relating to them, it was that they, at this point, in order for them to engage and relate to the land, it was important for them to feel it that is theirs. It is too soon that they still remember when the land was, usurped from them, right, by the colonizers. So it's something that we need to be very sensitive about that. So the inscribing of the symbolism and then really engaging in long-term relations with everybody. We see this like long-term relationship with the Tataviam, long-term relationship with the sisters, long-term relationship with the birds. The fact that these oak titmouse family came and decided to nest twice, whether they are the little ones or the same ones, we don't know, but we have their nest and we're analyzing the nest. But I think that relationships to this is about tending to, caring about it, caring about the land and about its wildlife and its ecologies, and we are part of them every day. So this is something that as we move into wildlife corridors and we want to establish them in every single primary school that wants to, play ball with us on this, we know we need to really be clear with them that it really is about tending to a garden and to be able to have the processes in place that can then, all of that will be inherited. Is there anything you might want to add, Amor, that we have not spoken about?
No, yeah, just the art making and place making includes constant maintenance, and it's a new way of art making for us. It's constant. It's continuous.
It's alive.
There's no end to the project.
Yeah, I think that so many times I have done artworks that are really about calling awareness. This is different. This is actually restoration. We are restoring land, restoring wildlife corridors, restoring the habitats of the living. So it is a living project, and that is what is amazing about the Biophilia Treehouse.
Wonderful. Hydron, I want to make sure you get your time in.
Sure. So that's a perfect segue to one of my questions, but I want to begin by just sharing with you, as you were going through the slides and talking about the project, I pulled out 4 words that seem to be the guiding principles. The first one, observation. The Biophilia Treehouse is a point of observation. This is where you can go and observe. And in the case of the Biophilia Treehouse, it's a very specific community that you're observing, this community of birds and the plants and the insects, right, that they rely upon. So observation. The second one was restoration. And it was really lovely to hear how you're asking people and your team to take action. That action is required in order to accomplish the restoration. So all those hours you put in, you know, the maintenance and so forth, that's part of to restore, you have to kind of resupply and rethink, and it's a living thing. It grows, it dies. So it's a very, as you said, it's a very different way of art making. You can't just put it out there and leave it. I suppose you could, but it might change in ways or not serve the purpose, right? So there's a certain process that is actually part of the art making, right? The biophilia treehouse is the outcome, but the process of creating it and keeping it moving, and it may even change over time. It maybe isn't static. I mean, habitats do mature, right? And so they go through various stages. It'd be interesting to see how you might document the pioneer community, you know, when you first did the build, and then what happened over time, and what you think might happen 100 years from now. You know, what is its state, you know, at that point. The third thing was engagement. You want to engage people, whether it's the students or the elementary school students or community members or people, native peoples who have a cultural ties, you know, to that space. And lastly, access. And my thinking was your structure, and I don't mean the physical structure, but the structure of this concept, it's so robust, you know, right? I mean, you've done an amazing job of figuring out how you think about this, how you do it, how you talk to other people about it, how you nurture that piece of earth, and the birds that inhabit it. That is solid. And so I have a few comments about how you might or questions about what you're thinking of how you might do some of these things. So observation. What are you observing? How are you observing it? Is this, are you expecting to write a white paper? Is there a database? Is the Natural History Museum, the ornithologists there, are they, you know, have they been invited to come see it and to get their kind of more science-based take on it? But and another thing about this concept is, yes, you're building the biophilia treehouse, but it's adjacent to other trees. So you're infilling. It's really not cut off, right? The biophilia treehouse is going to nest, and I intentionally use the word nest, nest in between other biophiliae. I don't know what's the plural for biophilia. And I think that should be observed too. What's going on in the adjacent oak tree and the, you know, the shrubbery or so forth, because maybe the biophilia treehouse, you find out that it actually enriches a whole community of plants that wouldn't have had the populations, you know, that they have without biophilia being kind of inserted in it. Just that I'm curious about that, because the treehouse isn't in isolation. It very much, you know, is part of the adjacent areas. And then lastly, what is your plan for the site, say over 50 years, over 100 years? How about the sourcing of the materials too? I'm curious about bamboo. I can understand its choice from an aesthetic and functional point of view, but it's not a native. Granted, it's not growing there, so these are bamboo stakes, but why did you pick bamboo? And maybe that would be interesting kind of to think about. If you don't have bamboo, are there variations of the treehouse? What might be a substitute material for that structure? Because I think the steel is your kind of super structure, and then the bamboo kind of extends it. Are there other materials that you would propose? It could, maybe the biophilia treehouse is a little different depending upon where you insert it. And maybe that means a different kind of material, apart from the bamboo. Let's see. I had a question about the build process, and because it's in public spaces and you're going to have children and all kinds of people around there, I saw you were already putting in safety rails and, area around it. I don't know if down the road, if an entire elementary school uses it, or even a class, whether it has to actually be signed off. I mean, I'm sorry to be the downer to say there might be regulations about some of the access. It would be a shame if the treehouse couldn't be visited just by people on their own. But in order to allow for that, you'd have to, I think, consider if there are rules. I know we have a little park down the street that I live on, and the effort it took to get a children's play structure, into that little space, it was quite, took a lot of time and effort. So I'm just, especially if you mean to populate it up and down the river and have more groups participating. The logos, how did you include native representatives from the Tataviam, or whichever it's not the Gabrielinos, it's the
No, it's the Fernandeño.
Fernandeño, yeah.
Fernandeño.
Is that approved? I know there's a lot of, we want to be sensitive to the source, right, of those marks, and not just adopt a mark that has cultural significance.
Mhm.
And you did say you've reached out to some representatives, as well as the sisters, right? They were kind of part of that. I think that's really important. It also shows your willingness to partner with and engage with others. I wondered too if you've been working with people from the LA River or the Arroyo Seco, or all those kind of conservation groups along the LA River. I don't know if they have information that would be useful to you, or if they certainly should be maybe aware of what you're doing, because they could spread the word, they could share the fact that this is happening with their own teams and volunteers and so forth. That might be something to look at. And I think I'll just close by saying it takes a lot of guts to want to create a living ecosystem.
Yeah.
So, hats off to taking an idea. Everybody talks about systems thinking, and this is an ecosystem and whatever, but to actually, you know, decide that you're going to restore, you're going to place or augment a space and make it more fecund, or in this case, a home, a habitat for threatened birds. That I've never heard of anyone doing that. And I'm so glad that it's an artist doing it, because your ideas and your team, if it was a bunch of scientists, they would just be taking data points, right? But you're really trying to recreate the feeling of an ecosystem with a certain population, birds, you know, in mind. So it's just a lovely, lovely project. And let me know if you need any help. I can dig and replant too.
Thank you, Hedron.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. I mean, everything that you mentioned, thank you for all, both, you know, Becca and Hedron, for your comments. And everything that you mentioned, Hedron, yes, we've thought about it. We've studied that. We are very aware of all the aspects that you talked about. And I think that one of the things that, let's say that if I'm trying to remember a few of them, but in terms of how is it like for example, we talked to the LA City Arts Commission, right? They came to see it and they immediately loved it. And they said, we want this. It's like, people do not need a mural. They need this. Like, there was a whole project that they were doing, communities for the houseless. And they said, this is what they need. It's like, they need to be able to have a garden and to be able to have wildlife around and to be able to connect. So we talk with a lot of, like, the LA County Arts Commission as well, very interested as well to take it all through the county. The issues that and again, the people at the LA River and all of them is like, they know us, they know our project. And even with the city, they mention, if it is named landscape architecture, it will easily go into a site. If it is an artwork that one needs to maintain, no one will touch it, right? So I think that for grants, we definitely are talking about it as a landscape architecture, because it requires monitoring and requires tending to it and the community to embrace it. So another thing, for example, is that the ideal biophilia treehouse does not exist in a place as luscious as the Sisters of Social Service. That's not the point. Yeah. This is just that we are so grateful that we have this land, that we can construct our prototype. But you saw the initial images. It is really there in the corner of, Bandini and, the LA River, where everything is concrete. So the birds are going to need this. And so that's the whole project. Yeah. What we also learned talking to sanitation, LA Sanitation, is that they said, don't touch the LA River. You will never succeed on building anything near the LA River. But in the schools, in the libraries around them, that's a possibility, because you enter into partnerships. So Ola, for example, Ellie, I mean, I think that you have a lot to say. Yes.
I do. Yes. Can I add a little bit? I wanted to talk, I took notes. I'm very scientific that way. Yes. So I wanted to first talk about the tree aspect, that this is not a tree, which makes it quite unique. So there is I think it's a 1,000,000 tree project going on in Los Angeles, which is fantastic, and is very good for biodiversity and is needed and helps people. Trees are limited nonetheless. So a lot of the birds that we're targeting don't only rely on trees. So I think that it would be really great to put this in conversation with the trees. Trees can be, they're sometimes known as like these kind of keystone features, which has been debated in the scientific literature. How much are they a keystone feature? How much can you fully rely just on a tree? But they are very obviously good and useful. This kind of structure accommodates ground nesters, ground foragers specifically. It has that elevated ground, which is very useful and quite unique. So I did just want to point that out. We do have a data intake plan, but we do need to work with people. But I think that's also something in collaboration with the sites that we go into. I also just wanted to mention we've been talking a lot about restoration, and I forgot the word that Rebecca has used in the past. That's not exactly restoration. We've changed our landscape so much, and our landscape is fundamentally different. Climate change is also shifting where things are habitable. We can't reverse urbanization. So it's not so much restoration as it is like making this different kind of healthy relationship, and making space for other species and what different kinds of futures might look like while recognizing that past. And I think that that somewhat relates to the bamboo, sort of more symbolically. Most, if not all of us, are settlers on this land, right? Not everything that is necessarily non-native is bad. That goes for birds, and humans, all the different kinds of peoples.
Trees.
And yeah. And ecologically, when we think about invasion or evasion biology, those are things that can spread that are destructive or negative. So I do think it's really cool and interesting, and symbolic that the biophilia treehouse has all of these components intermingled kind of beautifully, in a way that is restorative. But I think that Rebecca can speak to the choice of bamboo specifically. But I did just want to mention one of my draws to this project was the transdisciplinarity. And in community ecology, we can think of all of these interacting components like they have their lives, but they're all interrelated. And there's this emergent thing that occurs that we call an ecosystem that has all of these different components that doesn't exist when you just look at the parts. So if you think about like artists or scientists or these community members, it's the same thing. That was my experience, at least, working with biophilia treehouse and counterforce lab, and also having a more managerial role as Lila does now, that there's this thing that emerges when all these people are in conversation, and continues to emerge and to interact. And that gets even bigger and broader when you add community. So I think that that's something that's worth highlighting and mentioning, as something the biophilia treehouse might represent as well.
Thank you, Ellie. And I know that, for example, Ellie put together a plan for us for doing the community science. And it really is one of those things that we have been, Ellie is tightly connected to the Bruin Bird Club. And they are so ready to come and work and do observations and science and in the biophilia treehouse, because that is an important component to be able to share and learn from it and share. With relation to the bamboo, is that we really looked at a lot of different kind of materials that would be able to be helpful for insect houses. So the fact that they are hollow becomes such an important insect house. And when we were trying to think about what else could go there, there's no way we're going to ever use plastics in there. There is anything that you would want to mill, right? You completely kind of utilize resources that are just in a way counter to what we're wanting to do. So, but we subscribe very much to what Ellie's at Counterforce Lab is that we don't believe in this native, non-native kind of clear separation, because nothing anymore is actually that kind of purist. We can bring that attitude with the kind of plants that we bring in and the insects and the life that we want to bring in. And we are expanding onto bats as well, which will be a very interesting thing of bringing like bat houses. But yeah, no, I think that it's been, if I would say that the one challenge that we see is how is it that we grow it? How is it that we accomplish our wildlife corridor? And I think that there is where the relationships to the city, their relationships to Parks and Rec, their relationship to LA sanitation. It's like, it is an ambitious, enormous thing that any guidance on this is so welcome, because that is a part that we have found that it's a little bit of the more difficult thing to actually have it in private homes. Everybody that we go to is like, I want one, right? It's like they want one. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Speaking of bats, it's time for us to fly away. I have to say, this has been a really good conversation. Amazing project. Thank you, Rebecca and Hydran, for your time and your insights and reflections. And thank you, Rebecca, other Rebecca, and the whole UCLA team for the wonderful work on this. Can't wait to see how it continues to literally grow
Yes.
as a project as well. And this marks the end of our Pando Days 24-25 season. So it's a big day. It's been the fullest, richest that we've ever had. 24 astounding projects that have made it out of the classroom into the real world. It's amazing to see. And now it's summertime. So enjoy these wonderful summer months. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the fall for the next round of Pando Days, as well as the Sustainability Awards in October. So watch your inboxes for more information. And for now, Pando on, everybody.